Hello, everyone. My name is Karrin Mayfield Felton. You are here to Planted LLC. I have a very special guest with me, and welcome to Celebrating Fathers, Men Who Are Walking the Walk. As usual, we're going to let this music come in and play, curated by my partner in life, Mr. Al Felton. All right. I always talk through the music, so I had to give you all a chance to listen to it. Today, my special guest is none other than my uncle, Spencer Mayfield. So you may be a little confused, but my uncle and my father have the same name. The way that you can tell them apart is my dad has a junior after his. So welcome, Uncle Scoop, as I have always called him. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. So today we have the pleasure of talking to another great man, another father, another leader, just happens to be my uncle. We're celebrating men, and I thought it would be very fitting to have my uncle talk to us not only about his accomplishments, but also he's my dad's brother, my dad's little brother. So as you will hear very shortly, there's a lot of similarities that those of you who knew my dad, Spencer Mayfield Jr., probably did not know about his little brother. So I'm going to throw this on here so folks can see this beautiful, handsome picture of my aunt, Coach Spencer Mayfield, brother to Spencer Mayfield Jr., accomplished coach, educator, and community leader. All right. So I want to just read you a few of his accomplishments. So Coach Spencer Mayfield coached in White Plains, New York for 30 years, winning 418 games and is still going. During his tenure, the Tigers won 10 league, 2 Section 1 championships, and won the first NYSPHSAA state championship in the school's history in his first season in 1994. Wow. He also led White Plains to his second championship in 1999, has been named Conference Coach of the Year 4 times, Section 1 Coach of the Year 2 times, and the Journal News Coach of the Year twice. Uncle Scoop, I'm just going to call you Uncle Scoop. Is that okay?
That's fine.
You're my uncle.
Right.
Received the Frank McGuire Foundation Coaches Award in 2008, was inducted into the New York State Basketball Coaches Hall of Fame in 2016, White Plains High School Athletic Hall of Fame 2021, and the Nyack High School Athletic Hall of Fame in 2022. Started the annual Harry Jefferson Showcase event, organized and directed the Hoop Academy basketball camp at White Plains High School. My uncle has conducted clinicians for youth and high school students all over the New York area, worked numerous basketball camps and clinics. He's been a guest speaker at camps and clinics throughout New York, to include the annual Gordon Chisa coaches. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Chiesa, that was
Chiesa, thank you. Gordon Chiesa coaches Invitational Clinic held for 30 years. My uncle was also the advanced regional NBA scout for the Utah Jazz for 23 years. He's helped many students compete at the Division I, Division II, and Division III levels for college. He has had players play professionally in Europe. Okay, some of y'all are going to notice some similarities between my uncle and my dad. He also did the same. He retired as physical education teacher in White Plains in June of 2022 after 29 years, completing a total of 42 years in education as Dean of Students in Nyack and as physical education teacher in both Tenafly, did I pronounce that right?
That's right.
And Rutherford, New Jersey. Folks, let me introduce to you my Uncle Scoop, Spencer Mayfield. I wish I had a round of applause button because that was amazing. So if you know anything about me, I have been surrounded by sports my entire life. My father, as you've already heard and know, also an accomplished coach, mentor, et cetera, et cetera. We probably didn't know all of the things that my Uncle Scoop has done, which is why it is so fitting to feature him and have him talk about men walking the walk. So, Uncle Scoop, I would love to give you the floor after reading all of those amazing accolades, which are truly, I don't count it as something small. You've accomplished a tremendous amount in your career. So, just talk to us a little bit about yourself, your family, and what started you on this journey to be the coach and mentor and community leader that you are.
Well, first, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, of course, and you get to talk with your niece and talk about my dear brother. Um, I'm married to Theodore Mayfield, who I met as a teacher in Rutherford, New Jersey, when I first started. She's still teaching in the same school that we met. Um, we've been married 32 years. I'm the dad of Amber and Spencer the fourth, the traditional name. Um, Proud of them and very happy to share how I got started was because of your dad was what the main reason because my father always used your dad as a model for me growing up. He lived in Virginia. I was in Nyack, but he had all the newspaper articles, and I still have many of them. He would always tell me, "Well, talk to your brother. Whenever I had a problem, call your brother. Call your brother." And we forged this amazing long distance relationship of love. And I always admired him, and he was my role model to become an educator. The way he talked about education and coaching, I always was inspired by that. I mean, I even when he had his towel on his shoulder, I put the towel on my shoulder. It was so I had this amazing mentor to follow.
So it's it was uncanny growing up because you all not only had the same name, but for you all to have won literally identical awards and accomplishments is a testament to what men are capable of when they put their minds to it with determination, commitment. And as you mentioned, you know, you had a role model, but in your own right, Uncle Scoop, you've been able to leave a legacy, not just for my cousins, but for the young men that you have coached. And so before we get too far on into the questions, I want to tell you all that there are 6 degrees or less of separation from your family and their accomplishments. So, in a previous job that I had, one of my team members, contract support, stated that he grew up in upstate New York, and I said, "Really?" I said, "Okay." He said, "You've probably never heard of it," and I said, "I went to grad school in Clarkston, so I'm familiar with upstate New York, upstate." He said, "No, this small town called Nyack." I said, "Really?" I said, "I happen to have an uncle, my Uncle Scoop, as I call him." And he was just like, "Was he a basketball coach?" And he said, "Your maiden name is Mayfield." I said, "Yes." He said, "Spencer Mayfield." He said, "I played against your uncle. And you just sent me, I want to say this was a year ago, you had sent me a picture of the award that you received in 2022." And I pulled it up and I said, "This is my uncle." He was just like, "I played against your uncle
Oh,
and they destroyed us often through my high school career." And let me tell you, it was just like, "Yep, I bet." I was not surprised at all. But I tell you, as a child of a father who was infamous and people knew his coaching and his officiating and all of the athletic, and then to meet someone that I didn't even know well. All we mentioned was Nyack and coaching, and he knew exactly who you were. For even though I'm not a male, that does me proud, and it just lets me know that my family is trailblazing and leading a legacy. So I had to just tell you that story. So we're gonna get into questions. So I'm gonna brag on you. I know you don't like folks talking about you, but you're gonna have to get used to it, Uncle Scoop, right? Because this is your time. um we've already talked about your bio, but tell me, how many years did you actually coach?
I coached for 43 years, and
Okay.
I'm going into my 44th coming up next season.
Yes, because you're supposed to be retired, right?
Yeah, I guess it's semi-retired, but not.
Okay. So I'm going to put this picture up. So this is, folks, a picture of your last team or your recent team.
This is my last team, the last season team.
This is your last season team. A bunch of young men looking serious. You know how our youth does today.
Yeah.
So talk to us about what it was like, because these are young men that you've coached, that you've groomed to not only play well but to excel in life. Talk to us what it was like growing up as a Black male for you.
Uh, Growing up in Nyack was a pretty unique. I mean, growing up during the height of the civil rights movement, learning Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King, and Jesse Jackson, and all of those leaders were at the forefront of of being a Black male. We had images frequently on the TV screen of them fighting for rights and civil rights, and we learned about activism quite early in our lives in Nyack. Nyack was unique in that it was integrated with busing and all of those types of things, but yet there was still underlining currency of racist activities going on around us. But we had to navigate it, and we had leaders that were helping us navigate those times.
Oh, I bet. Listen to Dad talk about the same thing growing up in Virginia. So, because of what you saw, and I'm sure what you experienced, what role do you think team sports, and any sport in particular, plays in the development of our youth, especially our African American boys?
It provides them with discipline, structure, commitment, committing to something greater than themselves, communication, because it lays the groundwork and foundation for having a family someday, being leaders, and accepting responsibilities.
No, those are really good skills. I love the communication piece because that's challenging to be able to. Now, again, y'all know I'm a female. You can see that, so don't at me. I'm not trying to speak from a male perspective, but in terms of watching my father coach, like I was at practice with him more time than I was at home, and looking at how plays are called, and being course corrected, and being able to communicate not just with your teammates, but also with those in leadership and supervision of you. How challenging was that for you, do you think, to have your players who may not come from homes where they communicate, or where they're getting positive affirmation? How did you see them develop and grow during that process?
The communication is probably the biggest challenge, in that not only communicating when you're actually playing, but communicating where you're going to be, when you're going to be, and why you're not where you're supposed to be. Um, Getting them to understand that communication, without it, you can't have a successful family, because you must communicate, not just not just in basketball, but you have to communicate in life. And men by nature don't like to communicate. We like to get up, read the newspaper, eat, and have our cup of coffee. And females like to, they're more open with their expression, and what are you going to do today, and that's why they're such the backbone of the family structure, because they're able to communicate better. And that's something that we have to learn and 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 improve upon as men. And that's probably one of the toughest things I try to get across to these young men is to become the best version of yourself. You have to be able to communicate.
No, that's good. I'm laughing because that plays itself out in my own marriage and as well as growing up with dad. Um, because you've had a front row seat to growing and developing young men of all races. I'm particularly honing in on our African American males because, as you know, in this climate, it's an all out. um, I want to say war, sometimes a battle to make sure that our children are and our students, come home safely. So, given what you've seen growing up, what changes have you seen in our African American males during the time that you've played and coached? Because I'm sure there's an arc, um, and we're in a different season. And so, talk to us about the changes you've seen and how it's impacted maybe how you coach and how you educate.
Well, there's been so many changes, like social media for one, outside influences over what they're doing, when they're doing it, commitment to a team versus commitment to themselves. That's always a challenge in how you navigate it. You want them to become the best version of themselves, but the trick of getting them to remain part of a team while they're doing it is a challenge, and getting them to, going back to the communication piece, being careful how they communicate and navigate daily activities with everyone in their circle, trying to help them establish a plan of navigating tough situations and being able to come home safe, and getting them to understand that it's not backing down when you come home safe to your parents. It's understanding that there's another way to handle those difficult challenges. Because as a parent, as a coach, I want you coming back the next day. I want you going home at night safely. And we have to help them develop strategies to do that.
No, that's really good and paramount. It is absolutely critical because unfortunately, it is a life or death situation. While I am female, I do happen to have. I inherited my father's gift of gab. I also inherited his temperament, which sometimes is not advantageous, and so hearing you talk about how you have to navigate when to speak authoritatively, and understanding that how you do that does not diminish your manhood. It doesn't diminish your position, which I think is extremely important. And because, as you all know, I have an affinity for coaches, team sports, focusing on basketball, is an excellent way to help young men learn that, and learn that you can be assertive and still be humble in order to get done what you need done. I particularly saw this when it came to how Dad chose starters and how he positioned his players. So I've seen you coach on film, and I want to insert a question that I didn't give you ahead of time because I want to see if there's a correlation between how you coached, which positions you identified your players to play based on their skill sets, based on how you wanted to challenge them, and how you did that as you related to navigating. Because let's just face it, there are everybody can't play center. Everybody can't always have the ball. So how did you balance that coaching style from your perspective and incorporate those lessons that you just talked about with your team?
I try to give each individual what they need and not necessarily what they want. If I know one of my players needs constant building up, then that's what I'm going to give them. If I know that one of the other players needs me to push him more authoritatively, that's what I do. but I try to always come at them from a place of love. I demonstrate to them that I love them and they can count on me. They know I'm always going to be there. And then I think by establishing those type of relationships, then they will let me push them when I need to push them. And I work a lot through my point guard. My point guard is like my assistant coach, a mini me on the floor. He has to do many of the things that I need him to do during timeouts or on the court, and using his voice to say the right things. I try to work within their personality to help them get what they need to get.
And that's why coaches, mentors are so important. Talking to the green button again. If you are out there listening, you are joining me, Karrin Mayfield Felton, owner of Feet Planted, talking about fathers walking the walk. And this particular father happens to be my uncle, who also happens to be an accomplished community leader and coach. If you missed his bio at the intro, I need you to full on rewind this after it's done so that you can hear all his accolades, because he knoweth what he talketh about. I love that answer. Those are lessons that are learned real time, and they are applicable to school. They're applicable to work. The position that you are in, and that many men are in, whether they're educators, business leaders, to actually spend the time to demonstrate and to show young men, particularly our Black boys, how to do it. And I am so grateful that you are an example of that. Which leads me to my next question: is that how have you used the experience as a coach to help grow your players into manhood, um, and your own children? How have you been able to build on those relationships to help them go from childhood to maturity? Because that's a process.
Yes, it is definitely a process, and you have to spend an amazing amount of time with them individually. Like I spend as much time possibly with my own kids when I'm coaching. I coach, but when my kids had something, I would always try to find a way to make it work. Where I was there for their volleyball games, softball games, baseball, basketball. I always thought that as a parent, if they were in third grade, I had to be in third grade with them. If they were playing volleyball, I had to play volleyball with them. Whatever activity that they were in, they needed to see me visibly there, supporting them as much as possible. And then I would bring them as part of what we would do. Just like you spend time in the practices with your dad, these Amber and Spencer did the same thing. Um, Same thing with my student players. If they're involved in the play, they need to see me out in the audience supporting them. If they're involved in some community activity, I always wanted to show my face and support them. I think you get more out of them by being a part of their lives and demonstrating what a father should be, what a coach should be, what a man should be by actually being there. And I think that has been one of the major keys to the success we've had in White Plains and the success that we've had with Amber and Spencer.
I'm smiling. That is so good. Being active, being present, is going to do so much for any child, let alone our male children. So I'm going to transition a little bit. We started from the basketball perspective, and now I want to get to you as a man leader in the community. We've already talked about you as a role model. So this segment is really a tribute to fathers. So in May, I definitely leaned in with the women and mothers in particular. And so I am a daddy's girl. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a daddy's girl. I love my mama, but I'm definitely a daddy's girl. And so it is important to me to make sure that for June, that we highlight and talk about fathers. And your answer just stepped us right into the next segment. Tell us what fatherhood means to you. I think you've already talked about it, but Keep going.
Fatherhood to me, it means absolutely everything. It's being a father to Amber and Spencer. It's what makes me smile. It's why I do what I do. It's it's makes me breathe. Without them, I never imagined being able to have that type of love. And I remember my father saying to me one time, "You'll never know how much we love you until you have your own kids." And boy, was he right. They they just they give you a reason for being. Um, they know I love them unconditionally. I mean, my daughter Amber's getting married, and I tell her husband to be all the time. Just remember, I loved her first, and I've prayed for someone like him to come into her life, and he did. And it's hard for me to let go, but he just has to remember that I loved her first, and I will always love her. And I will always love Spencer, and the sacrifice and to provide and to be there to be a consultant in their lives, those are the things that make you a father. But I guess I should back up. You To be a good father, you must first treat the mother right and with respect, and then everything works hand in hand.
That's beautiful. I'm over here, smiling and reminiscing about my own childhood. My dad told me that too. He's like, "Hey, I loved you first. Don't let these knuckleheads get it twisted." No, I appreciate that sentiment whole, like in my gut. And I love what you said about fathers loving the mother first. And I will add to that, whether the mother and father are together, that
Mm,
respect, that
must be.
mutual respect between both parents, because we have single parent situations, we have children whose parents are not together, and so in any situation, that is so important, and it touches my heart to hear you say that, and I don't know why I'm not surprised. You're a man of integrity. My uncle, that's my uncle Scoop. um so I love it. What advice do you give your kids based on your upbringing? My cousins Amber and Spencer the fourth, what advice have you given them over the years?
I try to get them to not allow anyone to paint them into a box and determine who they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be who they want to be, and to every day strive to try to be the best version of themselves and be true to themselves, and just rely on your spirituality when things get tough, and your family values, and it'll take you a long way.
That is great advice. I'm talking to the green button again. If you're listening, that's excellent advice. We all come from different households. I say it all the time. We're products of the books we've read, the people we hang around, our upbringing, and so these words of wisdom, I believe, are applicable at any age and at any stage. So I love it. And I'm going to ask you, this isn't the final question, but it captures, I believe, the intent of why we're doing this. It's a loaded question, but I know you're here for it. Why are fathers important?
Wow, they're important for so many reasons. I mean, again, you have to be a provider. You have to you have to love being a father to get your kids to love being fathers. You have to set the example, set the foundation. You to to push them into adulthood with a strong foundation. It has to come from the father as well as the mother, but the father, as a father, African American father, you you're stereotyped so much, and the jobs that we're doing out there, it's not appreciated by others that don't understand what we have to go through, what we go through, and there's so many of us doing the right thing. There's more. We're perpetrated as not. not doing the right things, being an absentee father, and all of those type of things. It's not true. We're out there doing the right things, and we need to celebrate it. And there's many father figures out there also doing the right things that set the example, that spearhead you into adulthood because you had that strong father figure, that foundation. Like my father didn't have the benefit of education, but he insisted that all of us had education, that we got an education. And he only went to the second grade, but yet he was a foreman on a construction job. So seeing those images of how hard he worked and how important education was to him, and it was instilled in us, that we were instilled it in our children. So whether it's education, instilling great family values, that's the role of a father.
I'm rushing to get back to the button because, as you already know, I take notes, and I love what you said, and you're 100% correct. Um, that fathers get a lot of scrutiny, and the responsibility is tremendous, and yet there are men out there who sacrifice, who do it hard, do it without support, and often do it with a hefty load of criticism from us, quite frankly, being fully transparent. And so I'm going to look at the green button again and say to all the fathers and potential fathers, prospective fathers, don't give up. We won't truly know how hard it is, but my hope is that this segment gives all of us a peek into what it takes to be a father and to be a man of standard and a man of integrity, which is why I have the guests that I have on, because they are that to me. So, as usual, what I like to do, because I've taken notes, is do a bit of a recap. Again, I don't presume that everybody joins at the top of the hour when this goes live. So for those of you, again, who missed the introduction, the man that you're looking at is not my dad. My dad is Spencer Mayfield Jr. This is my uncle, Spencer Mayfield, Uncle Scoop, who is an accomplished coach, educator, father, husband first, husband and father. He has spent his life, dedicated his time and resources to not just leading his home and leading his family, but shepherding um, other young men through the sport of basketball, which is also near and dear to my heart. And I recapped some of the things that you said that stood out to me. First and foremost, communication, helping your players and students understand how to navigate life through a team sport, being able to listen as well as give direction, and facing different challenges. Also, you talked about spending time individually with your players, which I love. My household was a household where folks. My dad had an open household policy. He ordered an open door policy. I had a team. My father's team. I called them my brothers actually because they were over my house so often. He availed himself to them because he grew up, with those same challenges. Obviously, dad was older than you, but spending that individual time, not just with his players, with us as often as he could, really impacted us in a lot of different ways to be the women. I have sisters, to be the women that we are, but also for him and you to leave the legacy that you have. And so the last thing you talked about was family and the role of a father. And you said so many great things, but what landed on me is the responsibility, the sacrifice, and accepting it, and understanding that in order to be that role model, there needs to be good relationship with the mother and the father, which is important, but also letting your children know that you're there for them, and that they can rely on you, which is absolutely beautiful. So it's custom. So first of all, how did I do?
You did great. I'm not surprised.
Thank you so much. You're slightly biased, but that's okay. I'll take it. It's custom. I always give my guests the last word. You've said so many things, but there may be a young man out there who does not have a role model or is struggling, just finding their place in the world. Team sports and sports in general are not for everyone. So this message or this statement is not just to those who happen to be athletes. It could be any team, but there's somebody out there who just needs to know like what to do and that it's going to be okay. What motivating words would you like to share with our audience, and also to that young or older man out there who might be listening?
I would just say, always lean on your faith. There's always there's always someone that you could talk to. There's always someone that is willing to listen and to help you navigate your journey. It's not always going to be easy, but if you lean on your faith, I think you will find the answers that you're looking for. And don't ever give up. And you are not alone.
I had a moment right then, trying to keep myself together. That is absolutely beautiful, and I thank you so much. So, folks, you know what I'm about to do? About to turn on the music, but before I do that, we're gonna add a picture of my handsome uncle back to the screen, and I'm going to thank you so very much for taking the time to come and join this segment, Fathers and Men Who Walk the Walk. Sir, Uncle Scoop, you not just walk the walk, you've lived it. And I know for a fact that Dad is 100% always proud of you, and that he's looking down on all of us, saying, "That's my little brother." I know he's saying it. I love you, and I thank you for sharing your story with us and just allowing me to let everybody know about who you are as an accomplished coach, educator, and community leader. So, with that, I am going to turn on the music, and I'm going to throw up some other information here. If you are new to Feet Planted LLC and myself, Karrin Mayfield Felton, owner of Feet Planted LLC, I encourage you to visit my website. I don't just talk about life stuff, as I call it. I'm a STEM professional, 20 plus years, and part of how I became the woman I am is through the man that you just listened to, and also my father and my mother, and the tribe of people who have helped me be the woman that I am. But before we go, if you are interested in following and learning more about Uncle Scoop, Coach Spencer Mayfield, follow him on Twitter at Coach S. Mayfield. Follow him, learn more about his team, and feel free to reach out to him. He is a man with broad shoulders. He can give you advice, and he is more than willing, I am sure, to have a conversation with you if you need someone to listen to. Don't be afraid to reach out. You may not know him, but I think you know him a little better now. He's more than willing, right, Uncle Scoop?
Oh, yes.
That's who he is, y'all. He is a man of integrity and more than willing to help you. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, stay tuned for more relevant content as we celebrate fathers, men who walk the walk. Thank you for joining us.